Welcome to the Reimagine podcast. Each week, give yourself 30 minutes and meet the people working hard to create the future of insurance today.
Hi, this is Paul Tyler, and welcome to another episode of the Reimagine podcast. Laura, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well today. It's great to be back, Paul, and I'm excited to introduce our guest today.
And before you do that, the subject is all, I think, just to give people a spoiler alert, it's about sleep. And I will tell you, this has been the election week. I haven't gotten much sleep. So I really want to find out how I can sleep better. So with that, Laura, tell people who our guest is and how they get,
Yeah, absolutely. So we have Eric Wells with us. He's the founder and CEO of Hibernate. And Eric has come to us. He's an active participant in the Upward Labs program right now in Hartford, Connecticut, by way of Denver. So we're excited to have this conversation today. Eric, can you tell us a little bit about Hibernate? But more importantly, I can't wait till we get to the point where you can tell me how we can sleep better.
Sure. Laura, Paul, thank you very much for having me. And it's a pleasure to be here on the program and here at Hartford. So we'll start by telling you a little bit about Hibernate. Hibernate is I call it simple, but it's a little electronic device that fits on your pillow and makes your pillow a smart pillow. So what does that mean? We've got a cool little strap that actually goes, and if you can see that, a cool little strap that goes around your pillow actually. So it just slips over just your everyday pillow. What that does is that holds in place a little electronic device that we have. And the little electronic device connects to your smartphone or your smart device, an iPad. It plays a non-audible acoustic sound wave that enhances your deep sleep. So people go to sleep at night about 30 minutes after their head hits the pillow. You get into a deep phase of sleep, and the actual device detects when you're in that phase, and then it plays this non-audible acoustic sound wave, and that keeps you down into deep sleep. It enhances your deep sleep, gets your neurons to all fire at the same time, and you wind up waking up a lot more refreshed, feeling better about your day. Your cognitive memory is a little bit sharper each day, and most importantly, at 3 p.m, you're not reaching for that cup of coffee or that frappuccino at Starbucks to get you through the rest of the day.
Okay, so how big? I mean, not sleeping well has got to be a massive problem. Like, how do you quantify the size of a problem like this?
Yeah, great question, Paul. So, everybody knows about the CDC because we've been hearing about that continuously for the last 9-10 months. The CDC says 1 in 3 adults are sleep deprived in America today. So there's 3 of us on the podcast. One of us is not getting enough sleep. And so that's 103. Yeah, we got Laura raising her hand. That's 113 million Americans alone that aren't getting enough sleep. And what's interesting is if you go look on a global basis, we're like the 7th or 8th country on the list of countries that are sleep deprived. So there's 7 or 8 countries ahead of us that even have tougher sleep conditions than us. But, simply what the CDC says is they recommend you should get 7 or 8 hours of sleep at night. And out of that, your deep sleep should be about 25% of that. So, an hour and 15 to maybe 2 hours of deep sleep. Most Americans, they're not getting their 7 or 8 hours. And then more importantly, they're not getting that deep sleep that is really critical for your health.
Yeah. So in terms of the consequences of not getting sleep, and I haven't actually read I've read the headlines on the CDC, right? I know it impacts your immune system, right? And that's why they're recommended today, correct?
Correct. So, what happens, a lot of people don't realize what goes on. They, through history. And I remember in my early professional career, it was, I sleep 4 or 5 hours a night. I was going 100 miles an hour and, I'll sleep when I die or something like that. I'll sleep when I retire someday. But the reality is if we don't get 7 or 8 hours of sleep, there's a number of conditions that are affected, both physical and mental. So, when your body slows down and your respiratory rate slows down and your heartbeat slows down, when you get into deep sleep, your brain is active. And your brain is sending message out to the body to actually send out super cells to help repair things. It's taking all that short-term memory and moving it over into long-term memory. So it's kind of cleaning the hard drive a little bit. And what people don't realize is a lack of sleep affects things like diabetes, obesity, heart disease. And then you go into the mental health side, dementia, Alzheimer's, all these things have been tied back to a lack of sleep.
So, Eric, how did you get into this? I mean, it's such an important problem that you're working to solve, but how did you find yourself here?
That's interesting. Yeah. So my journey to the sleep world. I started my professional career as a real estate developer. Grew up on the West Coast, grew up California, wound up partnering with some guys in the Pacific Northwest, and we built homes for 20 years. Grew a little real estate development business into about 1,000 homes a year. And then I had a great opportunity to sell that business in 2007. Did that, went on a little bit of a sabbatical, actually went sailing for a couple of years. And we bought a boat with my youngest kids and sailed from California to Ecuador. And then when I came back, I actually moved into Colorado when I came back to the States, and I invested in a couple of life science businesses. So we had a couple of companies that were related. They were doing some vascular stuff. So we had a thrombectomy device company, and then an early stage treatment for AAA, abdominal aortic aneurysm. I was just a passive investor for a couple of years, and then I started to become more and more interested in the life science, and I had an opportunity to take over one of those companies and run it as the CEO. The board asked me to step in and do that. Well, once I took that position, I just became really fascinated in the space. A couple of years ago, somebody walked in with this technology, a graduate student at a University of Washington, St. Louis, and brought it to me and said, hey, we're trying to get some funding, trying to find an opportunity to grow this technology. And we took over. Back then, it was a different name, but we took it over and turned it into Hibernate. And it's been a lot of fun just understanding sleep. I've spent 2 years studying it, attending conferences, going to, Consumer Electronics Show. And it's a great space. And, it is a pandemic that's going on in our world today. It's just not as well publicized.
Yeah, well, speaking of the pandemic, I personally have had the best sleep ever without having to wake up to an alarm. Now, I'm sure I'm not the only person is in the world feeling better.
What's interesting about that is I've got some survey data that just came out about a month ago of about 2,000 people that they surveyed. And during COVID, because people have more stress, they're actually the declining sleep. So there's people like you, Paul, that are going, hey, I don't need to run off to the office at 5:30 in the morning. But more and more people, because of the lifestyle at home and the stress and different things that are going on in our lives, they've actually seen more and more people with getting fewer hours of sleep, and more people that have declared their sleep to be in worst case, I'm getting a poor quality of sleep or just a fair quality of sleep. So we've actually seen those numbers pick up really over the last year for sure.
Yeah, I saw your device was blue. I was going to ask you, is there a red one as well? I don't imagine you're playing either CNN or Fox News to put people to sleep. What's the science behind the tone? How did you, where is this coming from? What's it doing? Why is it?
Sure.
Your tone, the tone that's going to work.
Yeah, great question. So the really science is not new necessarily. They've been studying brain entrainment and mononeural rhythmic beats for years. I mean, over a decade. And there's a number of studies that have been done, and other clinical studies that have done, and a lot of peer-reviewed articles that are out there. And basically what happens is, when you go in, and I'll get visual here for a minute, you start at a very light level of sleep and you dip down into this deep sleep. Everybody commonly knows about REM, that dream state, and that's very light level of sleep. But when you get down at the bottom of that curve in your deep sleep, your brain is actually working at a frequency of about 8 hertz. And what we do is we play that frequency at 8 hertz, and we call it deep sleep boost. And the deep sleep boost, by firing in a mononeural rhythm down at that frequency, enhances the neurons that are firing in your brain to actually have them work more efficiently. Releases, let you come up to REM for a while, and then your body automatically goes back down to deep sleep, and the device detects that, and then we get that enhancement again. Early in the morning, we change that frequency to 12 to 15 hertz, which is a light level of sleep. And we gently bring you up from deep sleep to a very light level of sleep. All of us have experienced the alarm that goes off early in the morning, and we seem groggy all day. The alarm startled us. And that's because we could have been at deep sleep when the alarm went off. Never happens with the Hibernate. Bring you to a light level of sleep. And then the device actually has a little vibration motor that just vibrates on your pillow to wake you up every morning. I typically wake up a minute or two before the vibration goes off.
So how does it work? So, having a Fitbit myself, I can see a tiny itty bitty about maybe okay sleep data. How does that compare from a user perspective? The data that I could potentially pull off of this, or just talk me through that part of the process.
Sure. And there's a lot of the Apple Watch has something, the Fitbit. There's a lot of different technology out there that's monitoring your sleep. Biggest difference for us at Hibernate is we actually do something to enhance it. So we've got an accelerometer that's inside the actual device. And the accelerometer is taking readings, about 300 readings per minute. So it's actually detecting, as your breathing slows down, as your heart rate slows down, as your movement on the pillow slows down a little bit, it detects what level of sleep you're at. And it reads, again, 300 readings a minute. So when we get down to that threshold that we've established that says you're in deep sleep, then that's when the device actually kicks into deep sleep boost and monitors. Now, of course, if you get a little restless or you tend to wake up, it immediately detects that movement, shuts it off, and then when you settle back down, it enhances again. So the accelerometer is one of the key features in there. And then it goes into our algorithm, and our algorithm is what tells you what frequency to play at what time.
So tell us, first of all, why are you in Hartford, Connecticut? Because we know you're a Scottsdale native or resident.
Yeah. So and Laura mentioned Denver. So I've got a home in Colorado, but our base camp is in Scottsdale. So you can warm up and you can have the cold. You get a little best of both worlds there. But Hartford, so I got contacted by a group called Upward Labs at the first of the year, just pre-COVID. And they reached out to Hibernate and said, hey, we're interested in your product. We've got an accelerator program we do out of Hartford, Connecticut. I immediately had to Google Hartford, Connecticut, because I didn't know much about it. Being a West Coast guy, I hadn't been back here. I've done business when we were in the vascular space in Boston. In fact, the chief of vascular surgery at Mass General was on one of my teams and done a lot of business in New York, but I'd missed Hartford for some reason. So we applied to the Upwards program, and about 6 months later, they called us up, and we did a number of interviews. Everything turned into Zoom, of course, instead of in person. And in June, they called us up and said, "Hey, you've been selected." I think there was maybe 300 plus applicants. Wow. What that opportunity for us was great. We get to come to Hartford for 6 months. And Upwards has developed this great ecosystem in Hartford where they've connected with all the major insurance companies and a number of other companies in addition to that. And so they've done this introduction. We've been able to introduce Hibernate to people like Cigna, who we're working with to maybe do a pilot at the first of the year, Aetna, CVS Pharmacy, you guys at Nassau Re. And so there's been a lot of great connections through the Upward program, and we're really excited. We've got 3 or 4 pilot programs that we just launched. We've got people out there sleeping on Hibernate devices, and we're collecting their data. And we'll probably have 50 devices deployed before Thanksgiving, all in these pilot projects through Upwards.
No, that's great. Now, if I wanted to buy one of those pillows myself, do you sell direct to consumer at this point, or are you really focused on, the B2B space?
Yeah, we are going to sell direct to consumer, but that'll be next year. So I'll put you on the list, though, Paul. And we'll
put my wife on the list so she doesn't wake me up.
There you go.
That's my problem.
We're gonna go get the pilot data that we want. Our goal is to have about 100 users sleeping on Hibernate for a couple of weeks. We've done some early studies with about 30 users, and the report came back 95% of them say that really helped my sleep. So that was great for us. Now, I want to kind of put some numbers behind it and make it statistically relevant. So we're going to get more people on it. We will sell B2B. We've got a number of folks interested. I mentioned some of the healthcare companies. They see this as an employment benefit opportunity where we can give it to employees of companies lower their stress, enhance their sleep. It actually improves productivity. There was a Harvard study that was done a couple of years ago that talks about in the U.S., $63 billion a year is lost from sleep depredation from workers. So we see that as an employee benefit opportunity. That's the B2B model. And then the rest of it's going to be direct to consumer. We'll open up a website at the end of Q1 next year. We were hoping to do that in Q4 of this year, but COVID put a hiccup. And so we'll do that at the first of next year, and then we'll start selling it directly through the website there. Hibernate-sleep.com is the current website. It has lots of information and a place where people can register. And then when we start to sell, it'll be through that as well.
Yeah. What's the most enjoyable part of doing a startup like this? Hard work, schlep from Scottsdale in November to Hartford. You clearly didn't really look at the weather in Hartford.
Well, pre-COVID, I was going to be here in June. We were going to go June through December, and I was sneaking out just before it got ugly. I spent 20 years in the Pacific Northwest, so the weather doesn't scare me. I'm a little agnostic to region, and I saw a great opportunity to come to the East Coast. But, to your question of why, I had a large company. We've had 200 employees. I got into the startup phase here 5 years ago with a couple of the life science companies, and just really enjoyed not only the space because, you create something that people are thankful. Building homes was great. We really enjoyed that in that business. But, the first time I was actually walked out of an operating room after we had treated a patient with a device, and you get to see the family sitting there going, how'd they do? And they go, hey, they turned out great. We did a first in man about a year and a half ago with a patient over in Hong Kong that had an abdominal aortic aneurysm, and I got to be there for that. Really pretty cool. And then you look at the sleep opportunity and you look at the numbers. If we can help everybody get a little better sleep, we're going to help a number of medical conditions just by getting them a better night's sleep. So I'm excited about the space. I'm excited about doing something new, and I love starting businesses. So that's what makes me a startup guy, I guess. At my age, I retired for about 4.5 years and went sailing, and then I got bored. So here I am.
I was going to ask the question to give me the one word that describes your why, but I think you've already said it. And, it came out with thankful. And I like that helping others is what's driving your passion to change the world through this. So it's exciting. And we're going to be keeping an eye on it. I'm going to be signing up my mother and all of my aunts because we have a group text going, and it's like they compare. I woke up at 3:00 this morning. I got to sleep into 2:30. So I'm putting them on your list.
No, that's awesome. One of our first pilots is with a company. It's in the Midwest here that has nursing homes and assisted living. And we got 5 of their employees to volunteer for the first cohort. And it's fascinating as we get them, they're launched. They've just now started this past week. And they're communicating back and forth on how they're doing and who's sleeping well. And so it's a lot of fun to watch this grow.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Well, you mentioned your website. It's hibernate-sleep.com. Okay, to see the product and read about it. You've got a lot of information there, which will give you all the answers, I think, to the questions we were asking about. How else should people connect with you? Is website the best way?
Website's a great way. You can reach me at Wells, WELLS, at hibernate-sleep.com as well. So reach out to me directly. Great information on our website. There's a couple of TED Talks that are on there that are great. It talks about sleep being your superpower. And so there's a lot of good information around sleep and then about our device. There is a contact us sheet on the website. So reach out to us, and we're trying to work with some folks over at UConn. We're probably going to do a little study with the folks over there. We just got an introduction to them. And so pretty excited to be here. Great ecosystem, and love being on your podcast as well.
Yeah. Well,
thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for joining us. And I can't wait. I'll be one of your first customers too. So
excellent. That's what I like to hear.
All right.
My CFO will beat me up if I don't put out the plug. We are raising capital. So anybody that's interested in investing in the sleep space, give me a holler. We'd love to get some partners here in Hartford to join the Hibernate team.
Excellent. All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, great. Listen, thanks so much, Eric. Pleasure, Laura. And listen, please, if you like our show, subscribe, tell your friends, and until next week, thanks for joining us on another episode of the Reimagine podcast. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Laura.
Thanks.
We want to especially thank today's sponsors, Launch and Symetra.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend us on iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more great information about this company and other great startups at imagine.nsre.com.